Okay, today we will speak, Maxime and myself, about containers, containerization and the way to innovate in the cloud. Today we see an evolution in the business model with new concepts like business adaptability, enterprise that are composable, and this kind of new model is based on module or packages that are composed of business application building blocks. And we see also a direct interrelation with the evolution of the virtualizations method that are evolving also, coming from the virtual machines up to the containers, and with a smooth migration, and today already a part is also in the functionless, serverless function, which are really services that are on the public clouds. Based on Gartner predicts, we should see that for the end of this year somewhere, that 75% of the global organization will run containerized application in production. And half of the containerized workloads should be also in hybrid environments. And we will come back later on this aspect of containerization, but also the importance of the hybrid and multi-cloud environment. In terms of market drivers, we see it's cool to containerize. And the drivers are mainly the business adaptability that is required to have more agility and to adapt on the business model which is required by the market. The fast time to market also is really important today. The application modernization is also an important topic. And we see also the TCO reduction. This is for many years there and still there, a hot topic to consider. And also an important aspect, and I would say also important and consider for the regulation, which is the no lock-in to public clouds. And today the CSSF is requiring, and it's a good thing, to consider exit strategy when we go for public cloud services, to avoid to be locked in to a service, and to have always a solution in case of issues with these services. And it's cool to containerize, but it's not so easy. It's not so easy to implement. It's not so easy to manage, and especially in a multi-cloud environment, it should start to be complex. The scalability of the infrastructure is also something to deal with, and the security that is natively embedded with the technology like Kubernetes is not sufficient, it's limited. And all these topics have to be considered. The containerization is not only a question of technology. To guarantee the success of the transformation path, aspects such skills, mindset, the cultural dimension of enterprise, organizational adjustment are required. And also the process, and after the technologies and infrastructure are considered. These topics, which are part of transformation, will be covered in the next session. The actual and target maturity of an enterprise have to be evaluated through consulting, which is a consulting adoption services, to define the gap and the related global project plan to integrate all these dimensions in the transformation, not only the part of technology and infrastructure. And starting from this approach, it's modeling a new paradigm. And this new paradigm includes 3 view angles: the infrastructure, the application transformation, and the operation procedures. And Maxime will go more in details in the next slide with this approach.
Thank you, Patrick. So indeed, I will elaborate a little bit more on these 3 perspectives. So the application stack and application to a larger extent can be hosted on different types of infrastructure. The first one would be, for instance, the on-prem, which is quite often due to local regulation. So the choice of the on-prem would be that regulation. Alternatively, they can be managed by service provider, so a little bit like what Calendus is offering, or deployed to a standard cloud provider, such as Microsoft or Google. Now, of course, the choice of the infrastructure is yours, is assuming it's deliberate and it's based on the IT strategy. Now, the trend today is to go hybrid. So, in other words, the idea here is to spread your application landscape across multiple types of infrastructure, as you have on the screen. So, by adopting an hybrid approach, you introduce the notions of containers and serverless. I'm going to very briefly describe these two. So serverless is basically an approach where a tiny part of the application, quite often called a function, is deployed without having to worry about whether or not the function can scale. Actually, the infrastructure will deal with it. And besides, the important thing to notice is that these functions work or run on a request base, which means that you pay for what you consume and nothing else. The container, on the other hand, represents, and I would quote, a role of your application, so for instance, a database. And they're usually extremely useful when you want to migrate legacy application. Now, alternatively, it is possible and actually recommended that you opt for a combination of both, so containers plus serverless. In that case, only function with a reasonable size will be deployed in a serverless mode, and the rest will be containerized. Now let's focus about the main subject of this session, so the containers. So the container concept implies a high level of abstraction in your infrastructure. So therefore, the infrastructure can be now represented through source code or scripts. The tools you would typically use would be Terraform, Ansible, or Chef. And that will enable you to provision very easily and quickly an infrastructure. And then ultimately, and we're going to touch base this in a few slides, is you need to wrap this up into a set of procedures. But again, we're going to see that in the next slide. In the next few slides. So back to your application landscape, and assuming that you're looking at transforming it. Can you still hear me? It's crucial to have. It's crucial to have a robust modernization path in place. So at Calendus, we have defined a process which drives the cloud adoption initiatives and includes application transformation projects. And I suggest that we'll go through that process. So the very first stage or step is the discovery. The idea here is to have an in-depth view and understanding of your application stacks, so all of them. And then once this is done, we're going to move to the migration path analysis, I would say. So here the idea is that for each application or application stack, we'll try to identify which path is more appropriate. And there are three paths that we have identified at very high level. The first one would be the lift end, and that can be the lift and rehost or lift and reshape. So lift and rehost is typically the lift and shift that you've heard before. So you take a VM, you move it, and there we go. The lift and reshape, the idea behind this is to take, for instance, a VM and you migrate to a container version of that VM. The next one is the re-platform. So here the aim is to replace some existing technical functionalities with IaaS or PaaS services. So that could imply some recoding on your side, but one of the big benefit is simplify your architecture. And then the last one is the refactoring. So this one is actually the trickiest, I would say. It implies to completely review the architecture of your application or application stack. And because you review completely the architecture, then it's highly likely that you will have to recode completely the solution. So at this stage, we are ready to deploy. And we'll enter into a loop process. And that loop process will go through a set of steps where you will migrate the data to the environment. You will test the environment, and we're going to talk about this a bit later. You will tune the environment and what you have deployed in that environment, and then you will loop again for the next environment. So typically, you would go through test, UAT, pre-prod, production, and so on. At the end, the idea is to sign off this whole process, make sure that the targets have been met, but also it's also the good opportunity to review what has been done and see if there is an improvement possible. So quite often, organizations are looking at a lift and rehost or reshape at the very first step of the process, and then at the end, they reconsider a replatforming or refactoring. Okay, so we've seen two perspectives out of the three. So we're going to review the operational procedures. So it's a set of steps, actually. It's not exhaustive. We've only highlighted I would say, the most important one. So the migration path that we have identified earlier, to be effective, they must be part of a procedure. And the very first step is the development of the container. So here, when we talk about development, it focuses only on the container. Then we move to testing phase. Again, this is focusing on the testing. We'll see that there are different methods to include and embed the testing. And then Patrick will cover the security and governance, the orchestration, and the monitoring of these containers. Okay, so for the development, a couple of points. I'm going to try to be not too long, let's put it this way. So before we even use containers, the most important is probably to have a repository, or also called a registry, that will store all your images. So there are different services available, like Azure or Google Registry, but you can go for Arbor, Dragonfly, and so on. Now, there are different types of repository. You have public versus private. That, I would say, really depends on your IT strategy. One of the things to consider is that the closer your registry is to your build and run environment, the higher the transfer efficiency will be. The next one is security and governance capability. I'm going to very be brief on this because it will be addressed by Patrick. So what is important is that you need to pick a registry that offers security features, capabilities, just user management, access control, etc. Some of them also offer a vulnerability scanning, which is can be extremely important. The content, this one is fairly straightforward, I would say. So always go for the most obvious option, which is a stateless container. What you have to appreciate is that the life cycle of your container represents the life cycle of your application and vice versa. So if you shut down the container, then your application disappears. In terms of testing, so the automation of containers is a crucial part of the life cycle, obviously. There are automation tools that are available on the market, like, again, Azure Pipeline, Google Cloud Build, Jenkins, and so on, that help you to facilitate the testing and the automation of that. I just wanted to give a few words on the type of testing. So there are two types of testing, internal and external. And actually, you could use both, and it's probably recommended to use these two. The internal is to actually wrapping into the container the testing functionalities. So it turns into a kind of self-testing, self-evaluation mode of the container itself. And the next one, the external, is actually to dedicate some containers to testing. So these containers will integrate all test scripts, test tools, etc. will be deployed in one environment or multiple environments. They will be executed during the test phase, and when the test phase is concluded, then they can be shut down immediately. On one last note, I wanted to mention the canary testing. So this is testing in production. It's considered as a best practice. It's based on service mesh tools such as Istio or Traffic. And I think I'm going to stop here. I think it's a good introduction for the next slide.
The security and the governance are also important aspects, and the security have to be embedded on the full cycle of DevOps, from the development, build process up to the deployment and run phases of an application. The service mesh is important part of the container security, and it includes ingress and ingress traffic inspection, and it also insert headers for the tracing, the distributed tracing. It also includes the authentication, the authorization, and the encryption of the communication channels between services. It takes all its interest with a central control plane to keep consistency on hybrid and multi-cloud environments. The security is not fully included with container technology natively and has to be considered at multi-levels, at the network infrastructure, nodes, workloads, code security, armor, and so on. The config Git repository is also a part which is important, where we have to manage in a secure way using airbag, resource quota also, and namespaces. The enforcement of governance is important, and we can say it's important and more important while the number of containers and in production environment is growing, but it's also important to define these policies already in a starting point, not to wait to have a large deployment of containers to start to work with governance. And the governance have to include and also make the enforcing for custom rules that are not covered by the native Kubernetes object. They have also to include guardrails that cover the security, the compliance, and the governance requirements that are unique to your organization. Somewhere it inspect the updates and reject the changes that don't comply. Define container image governance policies as early as possible on this context. The centralized policy is really important and is the best way to have the consistency on a multi-cloud and hybrid environment. And the audit log is also an important aspect to have the tracing how clusters are being used and by whom, to have forensics analysis and real-time alerting, admin activity logs, and the capability to log data access events depending on the type of operations. Security and governance are enforced on all the life cycle at early stage, and it's really important to have this enforcement as early, we say on the left, to shift this aspect on the left of the cycle, meaning already on development, to reduce the remediation costs and delays that could occur if it's not well covered on the early stage. And we can also consider on the cycle for the security, automated pen test on the CI/CD cycle. The orchestration is also an important topic for this aspect of containerization, and includes an extensive set of automation to deliver, in fact, the appropriate levels of abstraction for both developer and operators, while actively enforcing the governance and the central policies. Application-aware infrastructure is at disposal of the application and is considered as a commodity. Kubernetes doesn't know a lot about the specific needs of an application. For Kubernetes, a microservice application is just a container with some TCP ports. And it's important to add a dimension of the application needs to the infrastructure. It's a step towards the serverless platform world, where a unit of deployment is a function or an application. And the infrastructure runs and scales the application for you. All the aspects of auto-scaling and domain names and all these are taken into account by the infrastructure, and you have not to worry about VMs, load balancer, cluster, and so on. Monitoring also bring all this effective and it's important to be considered in the strategy, and particularly when you have more and more containers implemented. In the same way as we were talking about the abstraction layer, the monitoring focus will shift from the host-based view, the infrastructure view, to the application view. And it's important to have also the interrelation view between the different layers, meaning the application, the services, the container, the cluster, the host, and the infrastructure. While we have all this interrelation that is known, then we have really a valuable tool to troubleshoot in an efficient way. Application service and containers monitoring requires data collection, storage, and analysis across metrics, log, and traces. And the capability to map dependency of application services make it more easy to follow for the observability and to have a view on the performance of your application. And we also include, and it's really recommended, to have also the digital user experience monitoring, where you can trace and review the experience of users and also identify if there are some aspect of frustration or delays that are encountered with your applications. Now we go on the lesson learned and recommendations.
Thank you, Patrick. So the first one is actually most of them are fairly obvious, I would say. But so I think the first thing to consider is always serverless and fast as a mode. So this speed up the delivery time, but it also tend to reduce your technical debt. The second one is to avoid the provider locking. I think that has been addressed in the previous session. It's also a good way to keep a good IT knowledge within your team. The third one is actually in terms of cost. And what you should consider is not only the running cost, but also the engineering cost related to knowledge management within your team, so expertise, and of course your operational costs. The next point, which has been partially addressed before, but here the idea is to make sure that you put in place an infrastructure that is support to the creation of a new line of business in an automated way. And then the last one is actually that ultimately your goal should be to aim for a full automation and insightful monitoring of your entire infrastructure, wherever it is. So whether it's on-prem, service provider, or cloud provider. Thank you.
To recap the important point and the takeaway, the first is the consistency and multi-environment, using the capabilities of the public clouds services like you can find in EKS or GKE, and to mix with your requirement on-prem or in a private cloud. And with these capabilities, you can have a path for incremental application modernization and take the best of all this environment. The second part is the governance, which is really a key point, and more when you have a number of nodes that increase. But it's also important not to wait to have a critical mass before implementing the governance. And also, it's important to enforce this governance and the security at early stage of the development cycle to shift to the left of the cycle. The infrastructure as a code offers a level of abstraction for the infrastructure thanks to the automation and the configuration script, which dramatically increase the level of agility required for the innovation. And when this automation is governed by central policies, then you have a consistent approach with multi-environment where you have an exit strategy, you minimize risk, you have the governance, and you can have containerization and application modernization path to, I would say, focus on innovation of your application while you can let all the aspects of infrastructure and complexity behind. Thank you for listening. And I think we are at the end.